Yeah, hey,
Oh, yes. Everyone get ready. It is now time for a special edition
Prime coverage, Sports Network. Real coverage, real conversation.
Now, as we are joined by brother Robert Littal, BSO creator and the headline king. What's going on, Mr. Robert? Kyle, what's happening, guys?
I am doing well. Appreciate you guys having me on. Love the intro music.
Oh man, we just try to keep it hype, and keep it going for you, exciting new platform where now we get to talk national news. You joined me before the past, and I always appreciate your appearances when we were talking on the local scene. But I know that you are a national news media member and you have a lot to offer to all the sports fans. So I just thought this was great that you'd be able to join here on Prime Covered Sports Network as we're coming out, we're getting ourselves established in the game, and there's nothing more appreciative than having one of the best that cover all the sports out there giving us your insight and joining us today. So thank you very much, brother Robert. Thank you.
No problem at all. I enjoy it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's just kick this off right away. We obviously have a Super Bowl now in the making. Patriots and the Seahawks. Robert, I gotta ask you, I mean, you're out there on the West Coast, even though I know you got Midwestern roots. We see a very interesting story play out where we've got this second year quarterback, Drake May, who has played good. I mean, in the playoffs, he's been more average. It seemed like the regular season he was lighting it up and was really on fire. Now it's kind of plateaued us, which is so for a second, you're playing its first taste of NFL playoff experience, and let's be honest, the conditions were not good at all in the second half in the Broncos game. But we find him pitted against a guy that's story is very interesting, and it's gonna get played more and more. But I mean, it didn't even dawn on me until it kind of came across. And Kyle, this was something that really hit me, that he was in the same draft class with Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. And now it's funny because as soon as the playoffs ended, Rob, you saw this massive, crazy influx of I guess devout fans on both sides of the coin of well, you better make sure you criticize Josh Allen as much as you criticize Lamar Jackson, and then vice versa. Oh, why are you criticizing Lamar Jackson as much? Look at what Josh Allen did, and yet here it is that from that draft class, Sam Darnold's the first one that has gone to a Super Bowl, and he looked quite fantastic. And where we've seen Lamar Jackson falter in the playoffs, we saw the great Superman Josh Allen falter in this playoffs. We saw Scooby-Doo Sam Darnold get exercised, and now no more ghost. No more, and he looked like exactly what he was supposed to have been in that draft, and that was the second, if not maybe even the best quarterback of that draft. And it's been a big, but here we are. So
I think it tells you two things. I think it tells you where you drafted and who you drafted to means a lot. Just in your general success, because you can't Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a lot of general success, regular season success because they went to good programs. Someone like Josh Rosen, not so much. Bad situation. Samuel Darnold, not a great situation. We see what happens, and then I think the second part, I'll be honest with you, I think it's just luck. I'm really honest with you. If you look at Drake May's performances, right? If Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or pretty much any quarterback would have had this same path, to the Super Bowl without having to play great, because the other teams are making the hiccups, it probably would have worked out for them. I think what happens is that sometimes, and I always mention Peyton Manning when he won his first Super Bowl, it's when the other teams mess up and you don't have to be Superman, is a lot of times when these guys get into the Super Bowl. And then once you get in, and it's a 50-50 coin flip, how you're gonna play at that time. But it's just interesting how certain quarterbacks, can have MVPs and be seen like this, and then a second-year guy coming off a team, I think they were 2-14, 2-13, something really bad, 3-14 the year before, and then they in the Super Bowl. And another one could be a guy that people thought was a journeyman and had given up on. Is out there throwing for 300, plus yards and 4 touchdowns, and looking like the second pick, third pick in the NFL draft. So I think one of the things, just a small thing, is different in the 2020s. It's different than when in the 2000s or the late 1990s, where if you drafted a quarterback high, you stuck with them 5, 6, 7 years. I don't think someone like Troy Aikman or John Elway, they may not have been able to survive in this particular climate. You see CJ Stroud, that up and down was allowed a lot more in previous eras, where now they throw you out, they throw you in the trash after 2 or 3 years. And then we see a Baker Mayfield or a Geno Smith. We've seen these guys go to other places and be successful. So I think that should give people pause about giving up on these young quarterbacks so quickly.
It's the ebb and flow, right? And Cal, I know that you can touch on this as well in terms of look at how the landscape changed. Originally, those guys, Troy Aikman, and maybe even Peyton Manning might have snuck in before something came into play. The rookie contract. Once that was implemented, now a team is now on this rush scale of 5 years. I got to figure out if I got to pay this guy. Basically, let's be honest, the quarterback gets played generational wealth. And you have to make a big decision on a dude in a short vacuum. Whereas that Troy Aikman and those guys, they would sign lengthy contracts as rookies, and then the problem was the holdouts, and that's where it became an issue. That's why the rookie contract got implemented, because veterans were like, "Hey, how was this guy that's never even stepped on the field coming in the league, and he's gonna make more than me?" And then if he busts, now the franchise is sitting on the hook for this massive payout to a guy that didn't work out. So it's a evil, a good and an evil from both sides. It's good that the rookie scale was put in place, but now it has forced teams to accelerate the process of and you better not be in the second round like Jalen Hurts. Now you only got 4 years. So after year 2, you better be showing something, or they're ready to kick you out and usher in the next guy. And it also kind of points out to I think a lot of quarterbacks that are told they're not gonna be. You have to give them time. Like I know a lot of people have wrote Justin Fields off, but I don't think Justin Fields' story is done. I think just like Sam Darnold, like Baker Mayfield, some quarterbacks need time, man, to develop in a system that believes in, or at least a system that can properly develop them. What is your thoughts about Drake May and him and Mike Vrabel coming together to get? Is this just been a very easy path for them? I mean, with the Broncos coming in with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I don't like to use the word easy path, because you still had to win 3 games, and that takes away from what their defense has done. I do think there's a touch of luck. I mean, I don't know if they could have predicted a snowstorm in the second half of that game, but that's also on Sean Payton. He had an opportunity to go up 10-0 before the snowstorm. He chose to go for it on 4th and 1. They created a turnover on a blitz.
Oh my God.
So you have to give them credit, as well. I think at some point during everybody's run to a championship, there's only so long that you can play average, as you say. You got to have that good game somewhere, in there. And I don't think they're going to, the Seahawks are coming in relatively healthy, hot, and probably the favorites. So I don't think they're going to get any favors going into the Super Bowl. They're going to have to beat them, straight up. And we'll see, if that defense, going against someone that's not a backup quarterback, that's not in the blizzard, that's not going to throw 4 interceptions, that offensive line is strong, how it's able to handle hand up. But once you're there, like you said, I mean, it's not like you're going to say I'm going to lose. So you're there, so you have to make the most of
it. It does have a very lopsided vibe, though, right, Cal?
I think so, yeah. Especially the way that, if you look at the games that the Seahawks have played versus the games that the Patriots have played, it just seems like the Patriots had this one play here to help them get over the hump to win, to where Seattle, for most of their time, has just looked dominant and looked like the more prepared, ready to go team, on offense and defense. And it's where I just feel like it does feel one-sided in this Super Bowl that, it's the Seahawks to win, and it's up to them that if they lose the game, it's going to be on them. It's not going to be on the Patriots.
Yeah.
Based on what you see on tape, once the game is played, it's one thing, but seeing the previous games up to now, it looks like if the Seahawks lose, it's going to be because of the Seahawks. It's not going to be because of the Patriots.
I agree with that. It's actually a really interesting matchup. I mean, and I know people are saying, it's almost kind of a rematch of franchises, because it definitely ain't the same players or even coaches on this team, and it's flipped, right? Because when it was the old Patriots and Seahawks, and almost like 10 years ago now, the Patriots had the better quarterback. And Russell Wilson was, the young up and coming quarterback, and now it's flipped where the Seahawks have this, the established veteran quarterback, and now the Patriots are coming in, with this young upstart QB who at one point was, let's be honest, he was being considered for MVP, right up there with the guy who just actually lost last night, Matthew Stafford. Do you expect to see Drake May be, because I don't know, see, that it's just hard for me to believe in a second year quarterback with this much pressure.
I think that the youth sometimes helps you. When you're young, you don't know any better. He just got the league, had one bad year and he's in the Super Bowl the next year. We see a lot of young, we saw Russ, win, young. I think it's much easier, not easier, but if you're there early and get that off your back, your career kind of just goes from there. If you look at Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that, they get it somewhat early, within that first, 5 to 8 years. So if you get it in year 2, you may not get another opportunity. It's hard to go to Super Bowls. I know some people, I'm sure people that don't like the Patriots are like, yeah, whatever. They keep going back even without Brady. But I think the stat was the Patriots have went to 11 Super Bowls since the Cowboys have been in their last one. So the Browns have never been in any. It's very, very difficult to get to the Super Bowl. So you got to take advantage. And I think the fact that he's young and he's on top of the world and he thinks they're unbeatable, sometimes that relaxes you in a big, game like this. Whereas Sam Darnold may be like, the ghost may come back. He's had failures to the point that in a big stage, and he's failed in a big stage before. He had the Vikings and they were Super Bowl contenders last year, and he was terrible in the playoffs. So maybe that doubt creeps into Samuel Darnold's mind more than a young guy who's just kind of skipping around and more worried about what his wife is going to wear to the game than what's actually going on.
Was Sam Darnold, was last year, was that his first taste of playoff football last year?
As a starter, yeah.
That was his first. That was his first taste, right?
Yeah, with the 49ers.
But he didn't play, right?
I'm the guy, and I'm going to take us to the Super Bowl, and it didn't work out for him. And he used that experience, I think, for this year. But yeah, it's a different kind of breed, going into the Super Bowl, and like you said, the youth against the experience and how each one of them react. Because Russ went against Peyton Manning, and they destroyed him. But hey, don't get it twisted. the Seahawks offense scored 43 points or 41 if you take the safety away.
They exploded. Yeah,
they exploded, and Russ was young, and at that point you thought Russ may win 2, 3, 4, whatever it may be, and he went back once. He lost to the Patriots, and we see where his careers went from there.
Yeah, no, it was a springboard, and he more than likely. I'm gonna keep it 100. I think that he's a Hall of Famer. I think it springboarded him into a Hall of Fame career. And now we might have a situation where, well, either way it goes, whoever wins the Super Bowl is definitely about to establish a new story to their legacy. If Sam Darnold wins, then wow, talk about so much vindication and justification, because I remember when Sam came out of college, and a lot of people don't remember the hype, but at that time, like, USC had a lock on quarterbacks. Like they were just coming one after the next, and he was anointed as supposed to have been better than all of them. He was supposed to have been better than Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart. He was supposed to be like the golden arm, surefire bet. This dude is going to be the one, which is why the Jets. I remember the Jets when they drafted him; they were heavily invested in him.
Oh yeah,
very excited. But their development clearly was not there, and I think that what we saw from all those quarterbacks in that draft, they all needed to develop. None of them were John Elway, Dan Marino, where they're just going to come right onto the field and start producing. No Andrew, they weren't no Andrew Luck. But everybody, I guess, hyped them up to that point. But as you saw, Josh Allen needed massive work. There was even questions at a certain point if he should, if he should even be a starting quarterback. Lamar Jackson, we saw that took time. It took work, but look what it turned into.
That was the biggest,
multiple MVP, right?
Lamar was the biggest one where they told him not to be a quarterback.
Tried to change his position.
They told him to change his position going into the draft because they said, you're not going to be a quarterback in the NFL. And he stuck to his guns on making sure he was staying a quarterback.
Yeah, so all these guys, Baker Mayfield, it took time. Cleveland threw him out. And that we'll talk about egg on their face with that one. But Cleveland, goodbye. And now we see Sam Darnold and all of these quarterbacks, actually, not just Sam Darnold. They're all now playing at an extremely high level, but it took time. It took years to get them there. And if Sam Darnold wins, and his play continues, could he propel himself into that Hall of Fame conversation, Rob?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. No, but once you win a Super Bowl, look at Eli. Eli's in that conversation and we know, right?
I think you would consider this the springboard of his actual career because he's not old.
No,
I think he was 22 when he was drafted, and so what is he now? 28 or something like that?
Yeah, 27 or 28.
27.
Yeah, still young.
So, we're talking potentially another at least 5 years and maybe another 7 to 10. Let's just say he played at a high level for the next 5. He became a Seahawks stalwart for the next 5-10 years, and he produces numbers. Then you are talking like a Drew Brees. You're talking like like you said, an Eli Manning, a Phillip Rivers. If he has that longevity. Because he's still young. I don't think Aaron Rodgers even started for the first 4 years. And so he was in his mid to late 20s when he first got started. Brees didn't have a great start. I think Drew Brees would be a good representation of that. He, he's with the Chargers. It's 4 or 5 years. There's some up and downs. He goes to a different team, and then he takes off for like 13 years on that team with a Super Bowl. I don't know if that's something that Sam Darnold could do, but if he was to take off for a decade and kept them, in the hunt and with a Super Bowl win, then I definitely think, at that point. But I think right now a win just gets him, like you said, the vindication. And it's like I said, it's so odd with Super Bowls because you see guys like a Nick Foles or Trent Dilfer,
the one offers,
the one offers, and then you see these legendary guys like the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens, who are probably both on Hall of Fame trajectories. just never, the Donovan McNabbs, the Steve McNairs, they get a shot. Maybe that's the only shot. The Marinos. And then, it really is just that team and that year and who they go against and things of that nature that makes them almost, random. I mean, will Joe Burrow ever get back? You think about stuff like that. You would have thought that when Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl, the curse or whatever the Bengals was over. I mean, they had all this offensive talent, they had a young coach, and they've been bad, and he's been hurt. And how much time does he have left? How many more hits can Josh Allen take? How many more miles are in Lamar's legs, with all these dual threat quarterbacks now? So if you have that opportunity, it definitely hurts if you don't make it. I don't know how many times Stafford is going to have the shot again. So if you're Drake May and you're this may be it. It's kind of a weird year. The guys that you would expect were not really into it. This may be it, and you want to take full advantage of it.
Yeah. And it was an open field finally, because let's be honest, in the last 20 years, the majority of the Super Bowl wins have come from two quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. So, like if you think about how difficult that has made it for other quarterbacks to win Super Bowls, when you've had these two dominant quarterbacks just coming in and, hey, this is my year. Nope, this is my year. Ping ponging with each other. And then even before Patrick Mahomes, it was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. But it was only a certain class. So now that this old guard is gone out, where that's exactly why it's important for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen to win a Super Bowl, because guess what? A new guard is starting to come in. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, look, Drake May now, Bo Nix. These dudes are real deal. They can play. They're developing and they're only getting better. And so if you don't take advantage of that opportunity to get that Super Bowl, that's what happens. That's how you end up becoming a Donovan McNabb, a Steve McNair. It wasn't that they were so great and they stopped playing great football. It's that other great quarterbacks came in and then they rose to that moment and took that, and then they ran with it. And so, yeah, when people say the term missed opportunity, I don't like throwing that on an athlete, because I don't. Is it fair to say, a missed opportunity? Because guess what? One team has to lose, one team has to win. Anytime there's competition. But I do think that yes, these last two NFL seasons have been big missed opportunities for Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and if they're not careful, their window's going to close on them quickly.
No, you're exactly right. That's why I never criticize Jalen Hurts. It's like you get there twice, you beat Mahomes once, you were probably the best player on the field in both Super Bowls. You can't get there every year. I feel like Brady kind of, and then Mahomes right after Brady kind of broke people's mind, because before then, especially after like the Steelers dynasty and then probably after the Cowboys, there was a period of time where it was like different winners every year. It was like a mix. You didn't have like the 3 year in a row, the 4 and 10. You didn't have the real dynasties you didn't have the 49ers, the Steelers, and the Cowboys. You had this influx of this, and then you had the Patriots, and the Patriots in like a 10-year period where they didn't win. And it seemed like other people were getting in, and then they got back, into it. And then we got to that point where we did feel like it was Tom Brady every single year. Then we felt like it was Mahomes every single year. And so to me, this is a refresh, even though it's a rematch, it's two totally different teams, but it's refreshing because it's new people. I don't have to talk about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, anymore. I don't have to talk about how Mahomes and it's different story. I don't have to talk about Brady and Belichick. It's a breath of fresh air because you're gonna meet Jackson Smith and Jigba, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna the real good corner on the Patriots. You're gonna find out more about him.
Christian Gonzalez.
Find out more about him. Obviously you got a little Stephon Diggs and Cardi B in there. You got a little
a little drama.
But you're gonna find out they're gonna do the all these unsung heroes on the Seahawks defense. these corners and Witherspoon and now these guys are going to get an opportunity to get the shine on them for 2 weeks, and I think it's refreshing and it's good for the league that new stars get those shine.
Are you going to be there this year?
Yeah, I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna be there for the whole week. I think those days are probably over. Like, that's kind of but I do like to come in toward Wednesday, Thursday. I do a few interviews and stuff. Go to a couple of events, and that's normally when it picks up anyway. And go to the game and everything. I try. That's one thing in my career. It was really the first major league that I was able to get in and actually cover the game as an independent media person. I had done some boxing. I did some little stuff, here and there. But I mean, this is the Super Bowl. So this was like, once I was able to, and trust me, I bugged and harassed and did all I needed to do to get in. But once I got in, it gave me some credibility that I did not have before with the NBA, with the NCAA, with baseball, with a lot of these, other leagues. I said, hey man, if the NFL credentialed me, why you can't? And that was kind of my because it doesn't get any bigger than that. If the NFL trusts me, why don't you trust me? And I used that leverage to pretty much get into everything else that I was able to get into in my career. So it is a special place to the point that, if as long as there's nothing, everything's good with the home life and everything, and they continue to credential me, you will see me in those stands until all the hair is gray or all the hair is gone.
Man, let me tell you something. I absolutely love it. And that's the thing that I love about it the most, because I'll be sitting there and I'll be watching, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, I'll see the question pop up, and that's my boy right there. That's Rob right there. The media, I love it.
Media is so stuffy.
Yes.
You saw what they did with Mitch Jones and everything.
Oh, do you mind touching on? You want to? I mean, because I know it's kind of past, but I felt like you had some great thoughts. Me and Cal, we actually did talk about this and we discussed it. But I mean, I know you've been in some of the biggest media rooms. You have sat there. You have been at that place where Miss Jones was at, asking, a coach these tough questions after a loss or even after a win. Your honest gut feeling about it, did it really matter that much even for us to talk about it?
What I was trying to express to my media brethren is one thing that no amount of education, no amount of training, no amount of following the book that they give you, the teacher and everything, can show you how to read a room and show you how to understand the energy of a person. That's something that you get through life experience. Sometimes people just need to pick me up. And if you can feel that and you can read that, it doesn't matter what you do. You can be a reporter, you can be a fireman, you can be a nurse or whatever. You just have to understand your surroundings sometimes. And they always tell you, the who, what, when, and why, right? And I felt like a lot of my media people, they jump to a conclusion without knowing the who, the when, the why, the what. So if you just look at it in the vacuum, it looks bad, right? The reporter shouldn't be, showing empathy to the coach. They're supposed to ask the hard-hitting, questions and everything. But that's only if you look at it in a vacuum. But we're supposed to be, the media is the ones that's we're supposed to be the one that does research, right?
Right.
You're the one that's supposed to understand context to the general public. But they didn't do that. They just jumped on her without understanding. And what I was saying was, I thought it was a little odd when I heard it. So I was like, it was so odd. I'm like, well, let me try to understand it, So when I went and looked, I said, this is an older, Black woman who's been in the community for 30 years, who's interviewed presidents, So she over all of us, right? She's interviewed presidents and she's local and she's a beat reporter. And I think we all of us know it's different when you're a beat reporter than a national reporter.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, and then I watched the entire press conference and saw how bad the questions were. And I'm like, no one was put out. No one didn't get an opportunity. Everybody had a chance to say what they had to say. She just looked at this man and he needed. And when I saw his face, the relief that came over his face, I'm like, we should do more of that. There are times that we should. Now, everybody is not Miss Jones. Everybody doesn't have 30 years of experience. Mm-hmm. Everyone does not have that type of carte blanche with their newspaper or their media company or mm-hmm. something. I can probably get away with certain things in certain areas that other reporters couldn't. Like if I want, let's just give you a hypothetical. Let's say Floyd Mayweather was fighting, right? And I wanted to just say something man to man to Floyd, right? I can get away with that because I have a relationship with him that goes back 10, 15, years. So I don't have to ask a question. I can say to him, something, you did a great job today. The judges robbed you or whatever it is. I mm-hmm. can make an editorial out of a question because of the relationship that I have with him, with his people, with the network or whatever it may be. I would not do that if I was at the NBA Finals. I would not tell Kevin Durant, hey, man, keep your head up or everything like that because it would just be looked at differently, and I don't have that type of carte blanche. Now, maybe if it was a Houston, let's say he's in Houston now, a Houston beat reporter that have been with him all year and seen his up and downs and everything, they say, hey, Kevin, we just want to tell you that Houston appreciates what you've done for us. Even though you lost in the finals, we just want to let you know the city appreciate what you've done. Probably looks differently from their perspective because it's a Houston reporter, a Houston beat writer that has a relationship with him. And the fact that reporters and media people were so on their high horse when, traditional media just doesn't exist. I was talking about this earlier. Who got more screen time at the end of the Patriots Broncos game? Was it Drake May? Was it Jarrett Stidham? Was it the coaches? Was it Mike Vrabel? No. Who did the NFL Network run to first? Cardi B.
It's true. It's fact.
Hey, look, I got an exclusive with Cardi. Who's out there? Who was the viral thing? It was Cardi B. It was Cameron Wolf. Great reporter, by the way. I'm not knocking him or anything. I'm saying this in a good way. He knows what people wanted to see. Cardi B's out there with her green hair on it. More people are going to watch that than getting, the running back, giving Mac Jones an interview. That's what media is right now. Yeah. And for them to that's not what it is, was disheartening. And I'm glad a lot of them, it's black woman too. Old black woman. You talking bad about old black woman? Be your mom, your grandma.
Yeah. It was weird. It was weird. It was weird that a lot of people took that stance because the one thing that I think is, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because a lot of people did not. It's like they went over their head, was the fact that the relationship that comes with when you cover a team on a personal level, when it's a local team, and especially a team like Jacksonville. This isn't the Chicago Bears that have this massive fan base coast to coast. This isn't the New York Giants and Dallas Cowboys, America's team. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're still kind of a small organization in terms of how these other organizations are viewed and run. And remember, this guy was ridiculed. Liam Cohen was the Duval. How many people ridiculed this guy when he got the job? They laughed at him, literally laughed at him on national TV, put him down. No one expected the Jaguars to go and become what they became. And if anyone tells you that, then you're a sports guru. Because I'm going to tell you, I didn't even expect that from the Jaguars. I thought maybe a little climb. I didn't expect to see Trevor Lawrence actually be able to find himself again. The Jacksonville Jaguars that come out and win the AFC South. So no, she saw the ups and downs from a more inside personal level than any of us could understand. And here she is in this moment, seeing this coach that she's covered and probably gotten to know, and probably gotten to know in some regard. And now she sees him, having to dwell in this difficult moment. And she could have chose the analytical route, but instead, because she has a relationship with this coach, and you could tell by the way he was answering her, saying, "Yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am," that he has a relationship with this woman. That's what she chose. She chose kindness in that moment, and I just couldn't understand why something was wrong with that.
Exactly. I thought it was like a breath of fresh air actually seeing, some humility on an interview like that, because it's usually just question after question after question. But when you go to these smaller market teams like Jacksonville is, I feel like it has a more, home welcoming kind of feel because they're not these major markets yet. And just to see somebody take the time to do that, I thought was, one of the best things to see, because then you kind of see a different side of reporters as well. That, yeah, I'm here to cover a story, but I've been with you since training camp. I've been with you before that. When you got the job, I was one of the first people to interview you, and to see where they've come from the beginning to the end of the season. I mean, that's something that should be said all the time. Oh, hey, it was a tough loss. We see everything that you've done because I've been here since day one, and I've seen the change that you created and what you did, that I want to praise that. And for her to get backlash about that, I just thought was wrong right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah. I want to transition, Rob, because I do want to talk about some. Even though I'm rocking, I'm wearing the Bulls. I'm obviously gonna be Chicago to the heart, but I still think that this is a national story with the fact that Derrick Rose was honored on Saturday night last week and after the game, and I thought that was a great choice to do after the game rather than halftime, because he definitely deserved to have his moment, to have people speak on him, and for him to be honored. And his jersey was raised to the Raptors, and and rightfully so. But what I want to talk to you more about is the flip side of it, that he is going to be possibly one of the only NBA MVPs not to be a Hall of Famer. And is it justified? Because I know that the NBA, they said that the Hall of Fame is based off your whole career, your college career, I guess, is factored into it. But let's be honest, if you're getting drafted into the NBA, you had a great college career. Like you know what I'm saying? The odds are you're the number one pick in the NBA draft. You had a great college career. So I just think, what we had was, it was a small vacuum. I think 4 great seasons and then injuries, and he never was able to return to an all-star level. At first, I want to ask you: do you think he's a Hall of Famer? And secondly, do you think that it's justified if he's not brought into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think, he has what I like to call the Terrell Davis, type of situation, where the peak was very high, but short. And someone could say like Kurt Warner or something like that. I think what hurts him is he doesn't have the championship. If you have that high peak with a championship, you get in it. But it's an argument always over what's more important, like say a 5 to 6 year peak over, like, say, and I'm not trying to knock Vince Carter or anything, a 20-year just very not average, but above average, career, with no championship. Vince Carter, all-star, just fringe guy, but just he's in the Hall of Fame because he's around for a long period, of time. It was Vince Carter ever better than Grant Hill or Penny Hardaway at their peak? That, I guess that's really kind of what the argument is. And I think if you bring into his college, even though I think he only played 1 year, he didn't get to go to the Final Four. I mean, he went to a championship there. Even he's a high school legend. If you want to look at it, basketball as a whole, and if you take into fact what he's done for the city of Chicago post, Michael Jordan, he's still probably their most popular player they ever had. I put like I would have a problem if he was in the Hall of Fame. I would. There are people in the Hall of especially the basketball Hall of Fame, and I'm like, they're not better than that. Chauncey Billups wasn't better than Derrick Rose. He just won a championship and was around for a long, time. But he's in the Hall of Fame. There are people in the Hall of Fame that you can look at and say these guys were not better basketball players, than Derrick Rose. And it wasn't like it was injury that basically took him out. Do you basically ding him, for something that was kind of out of his, control? Like Russell Wilson. I mean, not Russell Westbrook's going to get in the Hall of Fame playing like Derrick Rose just for a longer period of time. So I know that's kind of talking in circles, but I think he has a case, for it. But I just think the fact that his prime just was cut so short. And he didn't that 1 year where, they were the number 1 seeds and they just happened to go up against, it's kind of sucked because I'm not saying the Bulls didn't have a great team that year, but, there's one super duper star going up against 2.5, 4, 3, we count Ray Allen, 2 mega stars, 2 very, very, very good other players. It's hard for one guy and Joakim Noah, to beat. So, if I had a vote, maybe not first ballot, because I think first ballot still should have some specialty to it, but I would vote for him at some point.
You know what? And I think that's exactly it. He won't get first ballot. I mean, I doubt that very seriously. I'd be shocked if he did, but I do believe at a certain point he will get in, just based off the fact of, like you said, he had Hall of Fame talent. And that's just something that no one can deny him, and no one can say is oh, you're talking smoke or something, because the eye test doesn't lie. And that's why I always kind of laugh when people try to do the whole LeBron Michael comparison, and I just won't even I refuse to get into it with anybody, because I'm like, you clearly didn't watch basketball then, because the eye test tells you everything. Just like we talked about with Vince Carter. He got in based on he could dunk, and it was very popular, and it was splashy, but I don't think he ever won an MVP. And he could be dominant at times, but he wasn't as dominant as Tracy McGrady. So no, yeah, I think that Derrick Rose had that clear cut Hall of Fame talent, but unfortunately, it didn't produce a championship. And I don't like to take shots at Carmelo, but at the same time, it does still always kind of upset me that he chose the Knicks over the Bulls when the Bulls heavily were courting him. He knew that him and Derrick Rose could be something powerful, and he went and chose the limelight with Lala and a little extra money, and it was like, man, whether Derrick. I think that Melo joining that team would have allowed Derrick the ability to come back comfortably, because it would have been another superstar there. He could have healed properly. And even if he wouldn't have been that top level player, he could have still developed into an excellent Scottie Pippen number 2 role. And so I do think that sometimes, like, things happen, not just injuries, but also kind of how your coordination of your team is brought together for said championships to happen. And I think that's I think that both of those combined are the 2 unfortunate, because I do believe that if Carmelo joins with him, then he does get that ring. He does have that validation, even if the career still is cut short, but at least he has now that MVP. He now has that ring. And I think then that makes you a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame. But because he didn't have that ring, he doesn't have that ring, and the injuries, and like I said, it wasn't just one injury. Me and Kyle talked about this on our local sports show. It was the second knee injury that was where it was like all the air was let out of his career. And so, yeah, I think it's unfortunate, because, man, I'll tell you, I loved watching the play. I had at one point, I was kind of like done with the Bulls before Derrick Rose. I was so spoiled with Michael Jordan. And after Michael, it was just devoid of such talent, and they were so average and just going nowhere. And then they, some kind of lucky miracle way, draft this kid Derrick, and it just brought excitement back to the NBA. Let's be honest. At one point, Derrick was probably the most exciting player to watch in the NBA, next to LeBron James. And so, yeah, like I said, I love seeing this jersey being raised to the Raptors. But yeah, I think out of a lot of players, I know there's a lot of players in sports in general, but definitely in basketball, he is one of my biggest what ifs. If him or either Grant Hill, I don't know, they kind of, but Grant Hill is in the Hall of Fame, so maybe it's not so much of a what if with Grant Hill. I mean, I'm just saying, right?
All right. Yeah. And that's when, like with Grant Hill, I think that's when the college comes into play for him.
Oh, yeah.
He went to school for 4 years or 3 years or whatever it was, and won the 2 championships.
Yeah.
And it's weird that the basketball Hall of Fame is not separated like the football one is. It's kind of all meshed together because, you know, a guy like Christian Laettner can be in the, you know, that and not have done anything. And then
Yep. Well, I want to touch base on, you know, when we're talking about D Rose, and actually, Marcus, we talked about it. I feel like he could go in, you know, based off of everything he's done for the basketball community, the Chicago Bulls, and what he could have been. I think a lot of people, especially watching the montage that people were talking about him on that night when they hung his jersey up in the rafters, is everything he could have been. And I think that would get votes to put him in because they're like, this guy would have been insane if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. And see him compared to some of the other people who've been put in the Hall of Fame, that's why I could see them actually putting him in.
Yeah. I wouldn't, like I say, no argument. You don't put you put him in, I think it's well deserved. But if he doesn't go, I cannot get mad at the committee because I do understand it. A committee I don't understand, Rob, and I want to touch on before you leave us. And I want to thank you again for joining us here on Unfiltered Sports with Mac and Cal on Prime Cover Sports Network. To all our viewers out there, what is the NCAA going to do with this Neal situation? And not just this Neal situation. I mean, man, we got guys now like what the Alabama basketball team. This dude's like, what is he, 25? Are they about to start allowing 30-year-olds to play college basketball? Can I go back? Can I hoop? Can I? I got eligibility left. I mean, this is it's starting to get. What is the NCAA gonna do? Just, I mean, is this just this Neal thing just gotten so out of their hands that they can't stop it?
Yeah, I think the one of the issues is I've always been a proponent of paying players, but where they messed up was they had so many years where they could have controlled it themselves, and the players would have been happy. They could have put a cap on it. It could have been half of, you know, $500,000 or whatever, but they just kept pushing it until it went to court. And then once it went to court, the court was like, none of this is legal. They should be able to get, you know, it's their name, it's their likeness, is their names on the back of the jerseys. They should be able to get whatever the hell anybody would want to offer them. And once the legality of it was, then it was like, well, what can you do? You know, they tried to put a cap on it with the $20 million, but the cap doesn't have anything to do with outside endorsements. So the schools are pretty smart. You know, we'll give you, you know, the school will give you $500,000, but, you know, Jim Beam down at Lex Ford Motors over there is going to give you the new Lexus. And if you do a couple of commercials, he's going to give you $1 million, you know, $5. You know what I mean? They found their way around it. And here's what I think the issue is. And once again, it's twofold for me. The players should get as much money as they possibly can because, you know, it's hard to get the NFL and there's no guarantee that you're going to make it. The thing that concerns me, though, is when there's 5,000 players in the transfer portal, there's not 4,000 or 5,000 positions available, right?
Yep.
So if you're leaving a school, you really need to make sure that there's some sort of market for you. Because if you just, I've seen it a lot with the kids that leave Ohio State, is they leave because, you know, either for more money or for a better opportunity, and they get to another place and they realize you don't get the same training facility. You don't have the same coaches. You may not get the same opportunity. And actually, you know, they're in the transfer portal again. So if you're doing it just for the money, I mean, I get it. But you really, but the agent, like, you know, I see the kid that went to Colorado, his agent is his uncle. And, you know, lucky for him, he's a first round, you know, talent. But there's a lot of uncles that are with a lot of kids that aren't first round draft picks. And the uncle is telling them, hey, leave a situation because you got to fight for your spot. And we get extra $5,000 here or whatever there. And it may be the case and it may not be the case, but you're going to have all these kids that have been to 3 and 4 schools. And then it's draft time and nobody wants them because they ain't show no type of loyalty and they're not really any good. And they don't have a degree and all of this stuff. So I'm more concerned about the predatory nature of agents, of schools, family members, and things like that. And also, I mean, I understand if you're at a place and you feel like you need to go somewhere, maybe it's your last year of eligibility and you need it's your last shot. I get it. Like, you know, Mendoza going to, you know, But a lot of the kids are leaving, the freshmen that are going to sophomores because they don't want to wait that extra year to play. And that's not how it used to be. It used to be you're a freshman, you fought your way up, to and maybe you played your junior and your senior year and everything. But now the problem is to get the recruits in, you give them $100,000 and they only play 10 snaps. And then their uncle comes to you after their freshman year because they think they're going to play as a sophomore and say, well, I'm going to need $250 now. But we don't know if you're any good or not. so I mean, you had 6 catches, and now you want to go from 100 to 250, and I already got to pay this guy and this guy. It's almost kind of worse than the NFL. The NFL at least have a salary cap, So I can only do so much. So I'm pro the kids getting paid, but I do think there's a predatory thing that needs some sort of oversight. But it's not like we can go to our government for it. We got other bigger problems than that.
I think it needs to be a separate line between, okay, these universities have become money monoliths in themselves, where they're collecting so much off of these sports now that it's separate from education. There's students, and then there's athletes at the school that just are pretending to be students. And whether it's football, whether it's basketball, pretty soon this is going to creep into baseball. You wait and see where guys are like, hey, how much are you paying me to go here? And the problem is that you turn kids into free agents. And which experience do you want them to have? See, that's where rubber has now met the road. You either want them to be a student or they're amateur pro athlete. Which one is it? Because you can't have it both ways. And what they were trying to do before was put them under the guise of a student. And then that's where it became a problem. That's why the money and the pay and all that was illegal, because other students aren't getting that. If I go to Ohio State, I'm not having no one pay all my tuition, kick me a new car, kick me, a million in the bank, and yet I'm still supposed to be going to class and getting passing grades. It doesn't equate. And so they are free agents, and when you have a free agency, you have to have some type of cap for free agents, because then that makes it makes you think twice before, especially being a young kid. You are definitely hurting your development when you are just trying to run and chase money and quote unquote playing time. Oh, because this guy in front of me, the coach said he's better. Well, have you ever thought maybe he is and you need to develop?
Yeah.
And so and that's my issue with it. You've made these kids free agents, and now you're a free agent. Free agent markets are controlled. They just are.
One thing that gets me is that they're a free agent every year.
Yes.
There isn't a guideline where it's like, okay, you transfer to this school, you have to stay for 2 years. There's no incentive for either side really when it comes to, all right, I'll come play for you. You give me a couple million or a couple 100,000 here. I'll play for 1 year. You know what? I didn't really like how this program is going. I'm going to transfer again. And then I'm going to transfer again. I feel like there needs to be, especially to help recruiting and build programs, there needs to be something in place where it's like, okay, you want to go through the transfer portal, you want to do this, you want to do that. All right, you're going to have to commit to 2 years. You're going to have to commit to 3 years. That way there's some building blocks with these programs. Because, I mean, look at what happened with Iowa State and the coach taking the job in Penn State. How many players jumped portal and went over to Penn State from Iowa State? Like almost half the team.
Yeah, look at LSU. Now LSU is going to get a bunch of Ole Miss players. How much Neal money the Ole Miss shove out to now where the ROI is ridiculous. There's no return on investment. I mean, in terms of the universities, they still get a bundle from the support of the fans and the universities and all that. But man, I'm telling you, some of your return on investments with some of these kids is not looking good. And if I'm these universities, I got to be screaming for there to be some type of free agency in place. And here's the weird part about it. What I found out is that the NCAA doesn't even make the rules for these sports. They just enforce them. There's a committee that actually makes all these rules for these universities, and then the NCAA just enforces said rule. So the NCAA is just a police. They're not the government, and a lot of people then don't know that.
Yeah, it's a. I think there should be a rule, and I hate to restrict movement, but I think it should be okay. You get one freebie, I think that's fair. You can, if you want to leave after your freshman year, that's fine. But if you leave, then you gotta, like you say, stay at least another year before you can leave again. I think that would make the kids think a little more before they go, because wherever it's almost like leaving a spouse, you know what I mean? Leaving a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It's like, if you knew if you're leaving, you're not going to be able to just go to the next. You might want to take a hard look on if you want to leave your house, before. If you know there's going to be some consequences of leaving, like, hey, if you leave, you can't do this, or you can't there's a cap on your NIL or whatever it may be. I think they would take up, because, like you said, right now they could just, if they just get a bad feeling, they can leave, or
I know
is tampering with them or whatever, they can leave.
Yep, and we got a comment in the concept, but the coaches can leave immediately, and that's the issue. But the coaches have contracts, and you know what? If the university, the university's compensated for that coach, for that if they want that coach to leave and break that contract, that university's compensated for that. And that's the difference. That's the biggest difference. Like, yeah, coaches look at what Kiffin, he takes the job at LSU. Now he's getting, but you know what I mean? Ole Miss is not still paying him for the contract that he was signed to. You know what I'm saying? It's they pay. Okay, you know what? You're leaving. Hey, cool. But we should still be allowed to keep our kids and keep our program in place, and keep an established thing going. And like you said, then if you want to go follow said coach the next year after you've fulfilled your obligation, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
I think that's smart. I think there's something's going to happen, but they're so into trying to figure out the college football playoffs. It's like they're not even really concerned with. They're so busy trying to figure out how to make more money off these.
That's
playoffs.
Just a whole nother beast.
That's
a whole
nother level.
And it just when I'm sorry, but even though I am a Notre Dame fan, but I'm not at the same time some just one of those people that's just drinking all the Kool-Aid. But I also don't think that James Madison deserved to be in that playoff over Notre Dame, and no one can tell me that. Even a lot of people can hate Notre Dame all they want. The facts are, if you're telling me that you thought it was a better playoff with James Madison and Tulane in that playoff instead of Notre Dame being one of the teams in there, then you don't like competition.
Sir, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh man, Rob, we love it. Thank you so much. We can't wait for you to join again, man. Thank you for coming on and being one of the trailblazers for Prime Cover Sports Network. Hopefully one day down the line we can look back and you can say, hey, you know what? I was one of their first guests to appear. And I would love that. So I'm gonna be looking for you at the big game. Hopefully I can catch you out there delivering questions in the style and flair that you love to do. And man, we thank you so much, Rob.
All right, brother.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day. Anytime you want to have me on, just let me know. I have a great time talking to you guys.
Thank you once again. Once again, everyone, that's Robert Littal from the BSO Black Sports Headline. Oh, I'm sorry, Black Sports Online, and also the Headline Kings. You can go check him out on X/Twitter at any time you want to get great national news coverage. Is here once again on Unfiltered Sports with Mac and Cal. We're going to be taking a little quick break here shortly. And then when we come back, we're going to be talking about the coaching carousel, because it is a doozy. We're also going to give our thoughts about what's next for the teams that lost in the conference championship games. And that's the LA Rams and the Denver Broncos. As we got a lot going on. We want to thank all of our viewers out there. Yes, we are seeing the questions Freddie, I don't care what you say, man. I don't even want to read his guy because he's just be so wild. But I love it. I love it. I love it. Once again, Mac and Cal, my brother, we got a whole nother hour to kick things off, man. I hope you're ready to go, my brother.
Oh,
Let's
I'm
do
ready
this.
to go, man. And we are back, waiting for Marcus to come back on with me. And we'll be going over the coaching carousel that's been going on here in the NFL. And let's see what we got over here in the chat. I'm still talking about some NIL stuff. Pac's biggest advantage coming into the Super Bowl. Freddie with his comments being silly. And let's see what else we got going on here with Mr. Marcus back with us.
Sir, yes, sir. Let's go, my brother.
All right, man. So this coaching carousel we got going on. There was some big news that just came out not too long ago with Mike McCarthy stepping into the Steelers.
Ooh, this one, man. Wow. So there's been a lot of moves, from Robert Saleh taking the Titans job to Jeff Hadley being hired by the Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse Smith?
Minter. Jesse Minter.
Jesse Minter being hired by the Ravens. This one, out of all of those hires, was probably, for me at least, was the most shocking.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it was kind of funny because when I saw it was like kind of just like a side note. It wasn't even a major story. It was a side note that Mike McCarthy was interviewing for the job. And I remember thinking in my head, oh, that's cute. Yeah, Mike McCarthy's interviewing for the Steelers job. You couldn't have paid me you couldn't have gave me a million guesses to come up with why he would be the right guy. I would have picked so many other people before I would have picked Mike McCarthy to take that job. One, because literally the last three coaches that the Steelers hired were all young coaches that were in their mid-30s. So that I totally thought that was once again going to be the direction for them. And two, Mike McCarthy's already had two bites at the apple. And, just as much as people have said with Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen, that more than likely he won't get another head coaching job again because he got two bites at the apple. I kind of feel like that with all former head coaches, that once you get two bites at the apple, that's it. You had your shot with one franchise, it didn't work. You got your shot with another franchise, that didn't work. I'm very surprised with the stoic, historic franchise like the Steelers that's known for keeping their coaches for almost 2 decades with each coach is hired, that they would go with a guy that, I mean, for me, I'd be surprised if McCarthy's there for 10 years, Kyle. And that's not taking shots. I can't see them. From what I've seen from Mike McCarthy, he's the type of guy that can come in and establish a rocky boat, a sinking ship, but he's not a guy that can come in. And I don't think he's got the. I don't think he's a good enough coach to lead you to a Super Bowl. I think he did it one time. He got a lightning in the bottle, and that's what we've seen from him, and that's why he was fired from 2 previous jobs.
Yeah, I was looking at it when I saw it come out that it's going to be the one thing that the Steelers have never done as an organization, and that's hire a bridge coach, somebody to come in for the time being until they find somebody that they actually want, which they've never done before. And I feel like with this, that brings back Aaron Rodgers for another year, because there's only 1 or 2 quarterbacks in this draft, right? So you go and you have somebody fill in for the shoes until their coach that they're looking for is ready to move on. Maybe they have their eyes on a younger offensive or defensive coordinator that's not really ready for a head coaching spot. And then you wait a year or 2 for when that next group of quarterback classes come out that are better than this one, to then start building up. And I think you just keep Mike McCarthy in there just to keep everything kind of afloat and where it's at.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, this is a stopgap hire, in my opinion, which shocks me because this is a move the Steelers have never done. And so here's what it signals to me: 2 things. One, I think you hit the nail on the head with the Aaron Rodgers aspect of, hey, you know what? I'm pretty sure in this interview, if we could convince Aaron to come back, is that somebody that you feel like you could coach? And I guarantee that had to play a big part of it. I mean, for sure, with him being chose as the head coach. But I also think that the second thing being, the Steelers don't think that there's a strong market right now for young coaches. Mm-hmm. I think that if Ben Johnson had not been hired by the Bears last year and was on the market, I think the Steelers would have threw every gun possible at getting Ben Johnson in that building.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe for 1 second that the Steelers would have hired Mike McCarthy over a coach like Ben Johnson. I just don't think that there was a young, up-and-coming coach with enough pedigree that they felt like was worth taking the chance of, because the one thing that we know the Steelers don't like to do is fire a head coach, especially early in his career. They want to try to give said coach as much leeway as possible. Now, what does that leeway mean? That leeway still means winning, because think about it. Mike Tomlin did not ever have a losing season. That means he came in his first year and he had at least 500 or better going forward. So now if you bring in a coach that maybe is not ready, let's say they would have gave the job to a young coach like what the Dolphins did with Mike McDaniels, and look how that played out, and it didn't work. And then Mike McDaniels ended up having to be fired. I think that the Steelers are looking at that there was no young slam dunk head coach, or at least someone that they interviewed with that blew them away to where they felt like this is the one. And so knowing that you still need a good head coach, because that make no, I mean, I'm taking shots at Mike McCarthy over here because I'm saying that he didn't win the Super Bowl. He got fired twice. And it's not fair to point out that he is a good head coach. He is not a bad coach. There's a reason he's had 2 head coaching jobs. Mike McCarthy is a winner. He has won games in the regular season. It's his postseason performance that has come under fire. But make no mistake about it, the guy knows how to win football games, and he knows how to develop quarterbacks. He got Aaron Rodgers in his prime. He helped develop him to the heights that he got to, and they won a Super Bowl together. When he came into Dallas, Dak Prescott had some of his best years as a quarterback with Mike McCarthy as the head coach. So it's not like there's some dumpster fire. This team is still, more than likely going to be a team that's hovering around 500, if not better, and looking for playoffs. But my problem with it all is that I think that the Steelers have to. There comes a certain point where you got to let go, and that's what. And that's why I'm so proud of the Chicago Bears. Shout out to the home team, because they let go. They finally had to stop trying to stay afloat and realize they had to go down to get back up.
Yeah.
And that's what the Steelers need to do. The Steelers need to go down to come back up. You need to get yourself a top high-level quarterback again. You need to get yourself young top pieces on defense and offense, and it's just hard to do that where you're constantly drafting in the middle or the lower half of the first round, which puts you in the middle to lower half of the second round, and then said third round. And remember, the top 100 players are coming out of the first 3 rounds. And so in the first 3 rounds, out of the top 100 players, if you're nabbing players that are everyone's at the lower grade than what the next guy's grabbing ahead did, that just constantly means that people are getting better talent than you in your building. And that's happened to the Steelers year after year. And you find diamonds in the rough. You find players late in the draft. It does happen. But there's also a reason that players are drafted as high as they are, and like an Aaron Donald or Myles Garrett. It's not by accident.
No. Yeah, I know. I get that, man. And you start seeing it. You saw it with the Steelers. You're kind of starting to see it with, the Chiefs, the Bills, where these late round drafting teams are not getting the quality of players that they need to have that impact right away. And you saw it with this. I would say, everybody put everything on Josh Allen, like this was his time. This was his year to do it. But there was he needed a lot more pieces to that puzzle to get over the hill. It's not just him on the field. He needs other impact players around him. And when you only have one target, maybe two, it's really going to be tough to sustain that consistent winning.
Here's a funny thing. I don't find it interesting at all. I think it's actually a direct correlation that his former wide receiver is in the Super Bowl now, and Josh Allen still hasn't got there, because weapons combined with another quarterback is what produces winning. If you're going to let go of said weapon, you have to replace that weapon. You let go of Stephon Diggs. You said that him and Josh couldn't get along. He was getting on Josh's nerves. They locker room cancer. But look at that locker room guy. He's partying with Cardi B, going to the Super Bowl. I guarantee Josh Allen would love to be there with him. But when you let talent go and you think that you say a guy could do it all, you got to be careful with that. And you are 100% correct that Josh Allen needs more. And maybe a little bit more coaching as well, which is why we're in the position that we're in, where they're looking for a new head coach.
Yeah,
I'm hearing Brian Gable, and I like that. I actually do. It here's a guy that did just get fired. It didn't work out in New York, and he was given opportunity. It wasn't like they, gave this dude 2 years of coaching and ran him out of town. So you do have to ask yourself before you hire someone like that, well, why didn't it work out in New York? If you think that you could be the coach to help lead this franchise, why didn't it work there? And he has a great previous relationship with Josh Allen because he is the coach that is directly connected and given the accolades of helping to develop Josh and turn him into the MVP quarterback that we see today. So could their pairing finally, help Josh to get over the hump? That I at this moment, I feel like yes, because I think that if you get someone that can, it's just exactly what we saw with the pairing with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. When you get a top level coach, offensive mind that you can put with the quarterback that can get the best out of that said quarterback, that knows him, that can push him, that can guide him. I think that then it becomes a perfect marriage. The problem isn't going to be, though, with Brian Gable being put together with Josh Allen. The problem is going to be with the guy that you elevated from GM to team president, and now whoever you have fill in for that GM role, are they going to be held accountable when they draft someone like a Keon Coleman, and the owner comes out and says, well, hey, the coaching staff wanted that. He never wanted that guy. Maybe that's a bigger problem why that team is finding their inconsistencies and getting over the hump. And so I think they're going to have to answer that as well. So coaching, will be a big part of it. And maybe Brian Gable is the start, because I know they've interviewed a couple other people. I think they even interviewed Phillip Rivers, which I thought was.
No, he pulled his name out of it.
Okay, because I was like, when I heard, I'm like, Phillip Rivers? I don't know about that.
No, he pulled his name out of it. But going back to the Keon Coleman situation, that's something where there has to be a disconnect between front office and coaching staff. Like, you guys should come together on who you want, that fits your system, that you think would fit your locker room. I mean, they go through interviews with these guys, during the combine. There should have been some connection where the coaches were like, dude, I really, really like this guy. He fits our system. I want him. And then the GM sitting down, like, all right, let's look. All right, yeah, we need a receiver. All right, these were his college stats. We really liked him in this interview. All right, sounds good. Or if it gets to the point where, like, we don't want this guy, the coach is like, well, I'm the one that has to deal with him. I'm the one that puts him out on the field, and I know I could get the best out of him. I want him.
Right.
And I feel like those are discussions that those need to be handled internally of what's really going on in Buffalo if they can't come to terms on who they actually want on that team.
Yeah, and that's why I said this has got to get figured out, and it's more than just the coach. But I like I said, I do like maybe where it's headed, and I can see we got in the chat, we got On Time Sports Talk saying that the Bills, they messed up big time by firing McDermott, and like we said last week, it's a mistake unless they find better. It's at this current moment, yes, it is. I 100% agree. At this current moment, it's a big mistake, and if they don't find better, it's going to continue being a big mistake. The only way that they can clean up the stain is by hiring someone to come in and help this franchise get over the playoff hump and into the Super Bowl. Not even talk about winning the Super Bowl, just get into the Super Bowl. And so that was going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because there's still a couple more jobs out there, Kyle, and they're very intriguing. Now, I know everyone's talking about the Buffalo Bills job because it has the most talented quarterback to offer in terms of, if I'm a coach, looking, trying to get myself a job with one of the 32 NFL teams. Obviously the job for Lamar Jackson has been filled. So now the most talented quarterback that I can work with as a coach is Josh Allen. But what I find to be a very intriguing job to me, and I know this franchise, man, they've been wrote off for some time, and rightfully so, their own fault. The family the Davis family has done the Raiders no favors. But it's a very intriguing job in terms of, whatever people want to say, Tom Brady is one thing. He's a winner. Yep. I know America gets sick of him sometimes, at least from the sports pundit side of it, because he has a ton of fans out there. That's why he's in and everywhere, always being seen. But I mean, it's just facts, But the truth of it is that the guy's a winner. He's been around winning. He didn't just win with the Patriots. He turned around and then went to Tampa Bay and won as well. So he's proven winner, and he knows football. So this is a guy that you get to work intimately with and get to use his knowledge. If you're coming in and getting this head coaching job, you get the number 1 overall pick. You already have a beast at running back. I think Genty showed that he is the real deal. If you get an offensive line in front of Ashton Genty, I think that you might have I don't because it's the comparison thing if it doesn't work out, but I saw some flashes of sweetness in that guy. I saw some flashes of Walter Payton in that dude. And I'm just saying that if you get an offensive line in front of him with a decent quarterback, you're going to see a different Genty on that field.
Yeah, and you got an elite tight end in Brock Bowers, as long as he could stay healthy. And I think I think we can both agree that we know who the first overall pick is going to be by the Las Vegas Raiders this coming draft.
Yeah.
So now you pair up that quarterback with that running back and that tight end, and you find some way to keep Max Crosby happy.
Or if you do trade him, you're getting massive assets.
Exactly.
You're getting massive assets.
And it ultimately depends on, what kind of coach they bring in to take over that spot. And I feel like for them, it should be an offensive-minded head coach. And I've said it before, actually, earlier. I don't understand why I haven't seen this guy's name, at least has given him a second shot after what he did with his little time in Washington was Cliff Kingsbury.
He's kind of floating around. And it's interesting to see because I could see him ending up with a job still. But the question, I think what's happening with a lot of these guys is kind of like floating around. Matt Nagy, Kingsbury.
No, I don't want him to get a head coaching job ever again.
Well,
I was happy that Robert Saleh went to Nashville.
Yeah, you know what? I can agree. I can agree. But I will say this much: if Josh McDaniels could get two head coaching jobs, then anybody can. I mean, and so I look at the fact of that right now. A lot of coaches are still trying to see what another organization is going to do before they make their final decision. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury could end up with a job, but you know who would probably might end up being? The Cleveland Browns. Yeah. Because nobody is crazy. I mean, like coaches are taking their names off the interview list for this job. It's clearly a dumpster fire up there. I mean, the team has got so many issues. They're on the hook still for a ton of money to Deshaun Watson, who supposedly is going to play this year. No one even knows if he still can play. So your answers at quarterback are still a dumpster fire because what do? You go draft another quarterback? You've already got two that you drafted in late rounds last year, and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And like I said, and then you got Deshaun Watson now, who's got massive guaranteed money still on the books, and he's from all indication is going to be healthy this year and going to be looking to be the starter and play. So now you got to figure out how you want your draft to go, what direction you want your draft to go. Obviously the front office has got massive issues. The owner needs to clean his house big time and get things in order there first. And you know what? I think that's a lot of organizations. So I'm not going to beat Cleveland up because I literally just saw that happen. With a couple franchises, Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears, the New England Patriots. They had to clean house, get everything in order first, and get things back reestablished so that you could get back to those winning ways, so that you can have that good coach. And I think Cleveland's going to end up with not the best of, but what's the best of what's left of, or who so desperately wants a head coaching job. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy ended up being the head coach for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
no shock at all, because that's when you get desperate and you just say, well, I want to be a head coach in the NFL. This is all that's left. All right, let me interview for it. And I seriously see that's what's happening. The last job that's going to get filled is going to be the Cleveland Browns job, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that job gets filled tomorrow. But I'm telling you right now, I honestly believe out of this coaching carousel, I think that's going to be the last one to get filled.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at, you look at the teams that are left in those organizations and the players that are on those rosters. Yeah, you would probably want the Browns to be the last one filled, because everybody's looking at that one like, yeah, I don't know if I want to get involved in that mess. Especially when you have that insane contract with Deshaun Watson, and then you have two draft picks that were drafted last year to be quarterback, and you have to decide on one of them. I mean, you're not doing either one a service by having Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders on that roster. Yep. If you think one's better than the other, then you get rid of the other. You just have to do it. Or you try to find a way to negotiate with Deshaun's contract to be like, hey man, we're gonna pay you out this amount of money, and we just void this thing out and you go away. And he's gonna say, no, I'm good. There was a contract in baseball called Bobby Bonilla Day. I think we'll work on that. You pay me for the rest of my life.
I mean, he's got them on the hook. It's guaranteed money. Even if they cut him, they still have to pay him. And that's where it becomes difficult because why are you going to pay that guy that much money to sit at home? You might as well make him come in the building. You might as well make him work out. You might as well make him try to play some type of football so you can get some type of return on your investment. Now, the flip side of it, though, the Browns aren't a dumpster fire. They have used a considerable amount of their draft picks to build a vaunted defense. Their defense is the Myles Garrett is already a Hall of Famer. And he's not alone on that defensive line. It's not like he's the only guy on that defensive line. They've got guys that can play. They've got Denzel Ward in the secondary. He's one of the best corners in the game. They've got some dudes. They've got
that rookie linebacker Schlesinger from UCLA. That guy's a beast.
They got a running back. Okay, they need to get that offensive line tightened up. Mm-hmm. But they need to get some weapons on the outside. Yep. But I mean, it's not like it's a dumpster fire. They're not devoid of talent. It's just
a lot of drama.
Thank you. It's a lot of drama. And so that's why I feel like the Raiders are more of an intriguing job because the Raiders are kind of in the same boat. Like I said, the Davis family has just done a horrendous job in running that organization for a long time. And now that they do have Tom Brady involved, it does seem to be a little bit of stability starting to build there. I do think that was the right decision to let Pete Carroll go. I kind of understand them hiring him at the time because you need to fill that position, and you know what, he had a great pedigree, great resume to follow. You know, to try to come in the building and maybe establish some type of culture, an identity, but at the same time he was the age that he was. Yep. And I think that the reality kind of set in on both sides. Like, this is gonna be way longer than a 2-year, 3-year little project here. Like this is gonna be way longer than that. And I don't think that Pete Carroll had the time and energy for that. No. And so I think it was a mutual firing on both sides. They used to say they fired Pete Carroll, but I think Pete Carroll was glad to be fired.
Oh yeah, I think so too. You know, there was another one that I wanted to bring up as far as with the coaching carousel, and that was, you know, Jesse Minter going to the Ravens. And I was doing a little digging, and I was kind of shocked that they would go defensive-minded head coach over an offensive-minded head coach, just because I feel like that defense is set and pretty good. And I feel like bringing in a mind to help push Lamar over. But they bring in a guy who has connections to both Harbaughs and has worked in that organization before. And if there was any conflict with the way that Lamar and Harbaugh were, is that going to kind of carry over with Lamar and Minter because he comes from that kind of coaching tree?
Yes. I mean, well, the thing is, and when you get these high-level quarterbacks, it does become, hey, we're hiring this guy. Do you think you're gonna like him? It becomes almost a buddy pairing. Make no mistake about it. You know, Caleb wanted Ben Johnson as his coach. Therefore, the Bears were going to do everything in their power to make sure that he became that head coach. Lamar Jackson wanted Jesse Minter there. And from what I understand, they have a very good relationship, a friendship bond, and so therefore he got hired. And that's why I truly am under the belief that what we talked about earlier. This is why I believe Brian Gable will be hired by the Buffalo Bills. If these quarterbacks say that's who I want to coach me, these organizations then say, okay, let's see if it's a fit then with the front office, and then we're going from there. So, you know, I'm not surprised by that part of it. When you have a relationship with the biggest player, with the biggest star on the team, the guy that's got the biggest contract, it usually helps you get that job.
Oh yeah.
It's usually a good way. But you know what? It wasn't just head coach. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. It wasn't just head coaches though that was in the coaching care. So there's been a lot of movement in coordinating positions where that I feel like carries a lot of weight, and people always kind of underscore the the coaching staff of
Mm-hmm.
teams. I kind of feel like it's like, oh hey, okay, we got the head coach, but then that's it. And it's like that's not how this works. You have to have a coaching staff, a good coaching staff, for it all to come together.
Yep.
And I thought that it was very, very great move, very tactical move by the Kansas City Chiefs to bring Eric Bieniemy back in their building. I mean, the guy was definitely, like I said, and I've said it before, he was the biggest, uh, he was the most overrated running back coach in the NFL. and it was so, I'm glad to see him actually going back to what he's truly great at, and he's a great offensive coordinator, and he probably should be a head coach candidate. And I thought that was a big move by them, the Chiefs, to bring him in. I thought it was a very interesting move with the direction that the Green Bay Packers went with, going with Gannon, the former coach for the Cardinals. I would really thought they were going to go for Al Harrison. I'm glad he's not. Me being a homer, leave Al Harris right where he's at. But I thought that was a very interesting hire. But one, and I glanced over it quickly because I wanted to get to the meat and bones of what we were talking about earlier. But I coming back to it, I did not like the Miami Dolphins hire of Jeff Hatley. I didn't really understand it, especially he was the Packers defensive coordinator, correct?
Yeah, he was.
How do you hire a guy that? I mean, how do you hire a guy whose season ended very lackluster? I didn't see his defense. He was not able to rise to the occasion after Michael Parsons went down. I felt like if he would have did that, I felt like if he would have springboarded the Packers, past the Bears, maybe up until almost the conference championship, something like that, then you could have really looked at it differently. They limped into the playoffs. They were never the same after Michael Parsons got hurt. And I felt like when they hired Mike McDaniels, it was a reach. And I feel like they turned around and did it again.
Yeah. I was
trying to understand those.
Yeah, I was looking at it, especially, maybe they were looking at his head coaching experience that he had in Boston College, on top of being the defensive coordinator. Because, I mean, there was times where Green Bay's defense looked pretty good with, even when Micah, and then they acquired Micah to make them even better. But then, that injury happens. But I'm just looking at the Dolphins as a team that just needs to be ripped down to the studs. Personally,
yep.
I think you bring in this defensive-minded head coach who's going to look and maybe will finally say Tua is not the guy. Tyreek doesn't want to be there. I mean,
hasn't that been established at this point? I can't believe that's still a question.
Oh, I know. But then you got Tyreek, who was happy when he got hurt since he didn't have to play. And they have a ton of dead cap space. So you're bringing in a guy that he's probably walking in the door knowing, hey, I need 2-3 years to be able to bring, a competitive product to the field, because you got to tear it down and build it back up. And getting rid of that cap space is going to be crucial for him, because can't bring anybody to Miami if you can't pay him.
Is he a bridge coach? Is that what this is? Is he like? Because it feels Matt Eberflus-ish. It feels very Matt Eberflus, where it's like the Bears hired this defensive coordinator that wasn't even winning with the Colts. I mean, it was like very like, huh, him? And it just kind of feels like that with the Dolphins. It's like, did you just hire this guy because, hey, we need someone here, but we know that there's going to be a better coach who's going to come along.
Yeah. And it felt different too, because he was not offensive minded. Maybe they were like, hey, you know what? Maybe we need to try a different flavor. Let's go with defensive head coach and see how that goes. Like, that's what it was feeling like to me. It was just like they just got out of a breakup and they had to go find something different.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't feel long term like I feel like just the Jesse Minter's hire is more of a long term hire because of the relationship with Lamar Jackson. The not only way that'll you know be torn apart quickly is obviously if winning doesn't come with it. But I feel like you hired this guy for a long term. That's why you're pairing him with Lamar. This is a long term relationship. I feel like the next coach that's hired with the Buffalo Bills that's going to be viewed as a long term relationship hire. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we know they obviously give a coach a lot of leeway, and even though the Mike McCarthy hiring is a head scratcher, Mike McCarthy's going to be given at least 5 years without a doubt. I mean, five minimum.
I think unless somebody comes on the market.
Yeah.
Unless somebody comes on the market that's flashy, who comes in and changes the team completely on the offensive, defensive side of the ball, to where they have to snatch him up. Just like if there's the next coming of Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson,
Sean McVay,
Mike McDaniel, like those kind of guys come around and they're like, okay, we gotta jump in and jump the gun. Hey, McCarthy, thank you for all you've done, but we got to get this guy.
That's the only way I can see it, and this is what I also feel like is what the Dolphins are doing, because like I said, he does not feel long term to me at all, and I'm no football guru, but I mean I could just smell things on the wall when it's not right. Like it was like when the Denver Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett. I knew that wasn't, you know what I mean? I knew it wasn't gonna work. It didn't feel like it was gonna be long term at all. It was when the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels after his dumpster fire in Denver. It's like, this is not a long term hire. I hope you know that. Like if you don't understand that, something's wrong with you. As opposed to when San Francisco did hire Kyle Shanahan, you knew that was a long term hire. You knew that, like with the Chicago, the Chicago Bears hiring Ben Johnson, that's a long term hire.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's certain.
Well, Sean McVay is going to be there until he wants to leave.
You know what I mean? It's so, and I'll tell you what, this young coach here up in Seattle, if he wins, he's gonna be alone. I think win or lose with Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel is entrenched. One, he was he's a Super Bowl winning player there, so he has a fantastic relationship with Kraft. And two, he's proven that he can coach. Remember, this isn't his first rodeo. He was a very good coach in Tennessee, and he's shown now here with the Patriots that the guy knows what he's doing. And so I think that total definite long term guy there. But I think if this dude wins it, I think if he wins for Seattle, I think we're going to see him there for quite some time. McDonald, I don't want to get Mike McDonald, is it?
Yeah, Mike McDonald. Yeah.
Mike McDonald, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember when people were talking about it. It's funny because, like I say, he is a young coach and he's kind of still going under the radar because, people are going to talk about Vrabel more. Mike Vrabel's the boisterous personality, right? He's got that former football player energy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Walks with the chest out, the bravado. So you watch how the Super Bowl gets covered. The coverage goes. A lot of the coverage is gonna go to Vrabel. You know what I mean? That's gonna he's gonna be entertaining for the cameras and he's gonna have quotes and all that stuff. But the guy to watch is the young coach for Seattle. I was hearing about him before Seattle hired him. When they decided to change direction and let Pete Carroll go and grab this guy, no one in Seattle was saying, "What are you doing? Why did you hire him?" Everyone actually nodded their head and said, "Yep, great hire." And look at how it's come to fruition. After it's been 3 years now, 2 years now that he replaced Pete Carroll. 3 years, and he's in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean he came up quick and built that team relatively fast. Especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then you get that reawakening of Sam Darnold when they were like, "Oh, he's going to leave Minnesota and completely fall apart," and just fit like a glove, in that role.
Yeah, I mean, and from what I'm hearing, Geno Smith chose to leave. They actually wanted Geno to stay, and Geno wanted a fresh start. He didn't want to stick around. So coaching, really matters, and that's why we kind of talk about these coaching carousels, because it's important to show everyone the importance of coaching and your coaching staff, and how it can lead your team to the promised land.
Yep.
But you got to get it right, and you got to know when you've got that guy, and sometimes I feel like organizations hire a coach knowing that he's not that guy, and then that makes me now question, why did you hire this coach? Because, like I said, from the local Chicago scene, we went through it. That'll always be a question of, why did you hire Matt Eberflus? Because everyone knew he wasn't the dude for the job.
Yep.
And as I see these coaching jobs getting filled, a lot of them are like, well, why did you hire that guy? Here's one that's been very interesting, though. The Kevin Stefanski. I'm hearing that he's getting some backlash from the Atlanta community, though, because of the way he handled Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. And I'll tell you, man, give a guy a chance. I did not like how he handled the Shedeur Sanders situation.
No, me neither.
I felt it was horrible for a coach to treat any player like that when that player hasn't even stepped onto the field because you don't like his personality, or you don't like his background, or maybe you just didn't like his dad. And you know what? That's fine. You can feel, but you gotta respect the player, man. You gotta respect the player and the player's game. And if the player is playing good football, you don't try to hold them back. To me, that's coaching malpractice. That's when we hear a kid say, "Oh, no coach didn't watch any film with me in my first year. I had to sit and try to learn how to watch film myself." That is coaching malpractice. That is not why you signed up to be a head coach. I will never accept that for you to turn your back on a player just because, I don't like, you know what? So there's a lot of people in this world we're going to be around in our professional jobs that we don't like. And make no mistake about it, that is his job. It's not a hobby. Being the head coach of an NFL team is not something that you practice because you're bored. It's your job. And with your job, it's your job to develop players, whether you like them or not. It doesn't have to be your best friend for you to want to give him playing time and allow this dude to develop. That to me was so no. Receiving backlash, I could see it, but I'll say this much: give him a chance. I'm the first one to come out and say give him a chance, because you know what, he could have saw his ways, his errors and his ways in that situation. It might have been a teachable moment. So before we write him off and say, "Oh man, this guy, he doesn't deserve this shot," because you know what, he's actually a really good coach. Remember, he's won Coach of the Year twice, considered a great offensive man in the NFL. Let's see what he can do with this young upstart Atlanta team that has a good deal of talent on it.
Yeah, but he's going into another situation with what quarterback do you choose?
Wow, right?
He goes
Cousins is still under contract, right?
Yeah, he's still under contract, and I think all that's guaranteed too. So now my goodness. So now you're walking into you're leaving a situation where you had 5 quarterbacks on the roster in the beginning of the season in Cleveland, where you're dealing with Kenny Pickett, Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, then Joe Flacco, and then you had Deshaun doing Deshaun stuff, to then leaving there and then going to Atlanta, and now you're dealing with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. And you have to decide which one to go forward with. And now does he get backlash in that if he says, all right, I think Cousins is better, even though Penix is younger, and they drafted him at as high as they did?
He would get big backlash from it because the organization has committed to Penix in a weird way, because like you said, they had signed Cousins. They literally signed Kirk Cousins, and then they turned around a couple months later and drafted Penix. Yep. And it was like, whoa, what are you doing? And knowing Penix had injury history.
Yep.
And so it was like, whoa, you just created a huge mess here. And then you turned around and decided to say, well, we're going to go with Penix and let him develop because he's the younger talent. But then anytime he gets hurt, now you have to go back to the quarterback that you got sitting on your bench that you're paying millions to sit on your bench. And you can't trade him because no one will trade for that contract. They're like, you could pick up the phone. Nah, man, I'd rather give Phillip Rivers a chance.
Exactly. And that's what it's going to turn into. Nobody's going to want to take that deal, even if they're just desperate for a quarterback. They'll call Cam Newton and be like, "Hey, bro, how are your legs? Can you take one more hit?"
Because you don't want to take on that money. I mean, and even if the only way you would is that if Atlanta agrees to swallow all of it, and that's the only way you agree to a trade of any kind. It's like you're gonna have to swallow all that money, or at least the bulk of it, and then you still, now we're talking about a contract on the contract renegotiation for another team making said trade, so it gets very muddy fast. And it's an interesting situation but I do believe, because of what Stefanski went through in Cleveland, I think that he does have the know-how and the wherewithal to navigate through
it. Yeah. I mean, the one thing is that only time will tell once they're all in the building together.
Yeah, that's it, big time. Only time will tell. And I want to wrap up with us talking about the teams that lost and the conference championship, because I think that they deserve just as much celebration and conversation as the teams that did win. And we had a great conversation, if anyone missed it out there, with Robert Littal from BSO Black Sports Online and the Headline King. He came on and talked with us about the Super Bowl preview of the Seahawks and versus the Patriots. But the two teams that went home, unfortunately, losers last night, the LA Rams and the Denver Broncos. What's next for them is very intriguing. I mean, obviously, Bo Nix, broken ankle in his leg, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be something to keep him from missing the start of a new season. So I think that Denver's definitely going to be kind of feeling the we need it back. We need payback or revenge, see whatever you want to call it. We got robbed right at the end. And because Jared Stidham did the best he could, but in those conditions, and the fact that this dude hadn't played in like 2 years,
exactly.
I think we all knew what to expect there.
Well, I do have to say, in that opening drive though,
it was
and I feel like it was the it's the scripted plays. Hey, we're going through this, we're going through that, but then when you saw the adjustments and in that weather, you really saw why he's a backup quarterback.
Yep.
And just the underthrows, and it really showed why he's not going to be a starter. But what also really hurts Denver, and I think they should address it this year heavily, is they need more weapons. That team cannot score. The defense keeps them in, but they can't get over the hump of scoring points. They need at least another running back and another wide receiver to just amplify that room, because the defense keeps them in, but they can never get enough points, it seems like, to really shut down games.
Yeah, no, and even when Bo Nix was healthy, he really kind of was the second half guy. Like the first half, they notoriously struggled all season, and then in the second half, he was able to kind of flip the switch and make things happen for him. But the thing is that I think that with that defense, they definitely have a shot. Of all the teams that lost in the playoffs this year, I feel like with a healthy Bo Nix, and remember they lost their starting running back to injury. Actually, it was J.K. Dobbins, was it?
Yep.
And with him back healthy, I think that they have the highest chance of actually pushing through to the Super Bowl. I think even more than Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens, because a lot of these teams are dealing with big challenges. First year coaches, even though I like to say that it can't, because we see a first year coach, or at least first year with a new team, coaching Mike Vrabel, and so yeah, I think that Denver, to me, can out of, especially in the AFC, they have the biggest chance to return out of all the teams that lost in the playoffs to make it to that Super Bowl. I would not be surprised at all if Denver was in the Super Bowl next year. And I know like the whole reason that Buffalo Bills coach was fired is because his job is to try to come in and do exactly that for Josh Allen and the Bills. But man, that's a daunting task to ask someone to come in. And that's exactly why I kind of feel like I said, going back to the Brian Gable, because if that's what you're trying, you need to have someone that already, giving a guy a first year head coach and get to Super Bowl. This is your way to walk into the organization. Hey, welcome in. Well, hey, Super Bowl now. Yep. So like that would be interesting. We got a question here from Tabs 345. Do you guys think if the snowstorm didn't come into play, would the outcome be different? Wholeheartedly, immensely. Clearly, once the snow came in, Jared stood and like Cal said, once the unscripted plays went away, that already didn't help. And then when you threw in the elements, big time difference. Lutz missed two field goals. I don't know if people know a lot about Lutz, the kicker for the Broncos, but the guy's pretty much automatic. And from the spots that he kicked for him to miss, that's not his norm.
And I would say not only the weather would have helped change the outcome, but on that one drive in the beginning of the game when Sean Payton decided to go for it on 4th down within the 5-yard line. I was looking at him like you're playing with a backup quarterback, man. Take your points when you could get them. They could have gone up 10. They would have had 10 points. And I feel like that was one thing that really hurt them for the rest of the game. Yep. Because then Lutz came in and missed that field goal. And not to mention, New England's kicker missed bad on some field goals too. So, I mean, if that weather wasn't there, I think that you really have Denver's defense really, pin their ears back and go at Drake May. And then you just have to leave it up to Jared Stidham just to manage the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And on the other side, on the NFC, the last thing that was being managed was the games. We had 2 flamethrowers out there, and we saw Matthew Stafford come up just short. And I guess my thing is with the LA Rams is you haven't won since Aaron Donald retired. And I know everyone says that this team was so poised this year. They were so complete, but they weren't. They're not, because you still haven't replaced Aaron Donald. Ever since he retired, you've got a really good defense, but you don't have an Aaron Donald on that defense, and you haven't had since he retired. And just as much as Matthew Stafford helped this team win that Super Bowl, Aaron Donald was the linchpin. And if you remember, the reason why they made the trade for Jared Goff to get Matthew Stafford was exactly that. Is that they knew that they had a game record in Aaron Donald. They knew they had built a very sufficient team, and they needed that piece. But now that piece, one of those pieces retired, and you still got the quarterback, but you didn't replace that major linchpin piece. And I think that that's made a big difference. And it's an elephant in the room that a lot of people still won't talk about. And they question, well, what's happening, why the Rams didn't get over why were they wasn't able to beat Seattle. Well, if you had a game record like an Aaron Donald still had it, might have been a different story, because Sam Darnold was able to have his way. And that's just the bottom line. He made big play after big play. He's able to have his way. And so what's next for the Rams? I guess 1A, hopefully Matthew Stafford doesn't hang it up, because he didn't give no definitive answer after the game, and that's never a good sign. When a guy can't tell you, hey, yeah, I'm back. That means he's gonna be. It means he's thinking about it. Remember how this season opened up? It opened up with him in a lot of pain.
Yep.
He had to fight through a lot of nicks, to get to that promised land and to come up that short, it is exhausting. It is mentally exhausting and physically exhausting. And can you get yourself back up for it one more time? That's going to be a tough question for Stafford to answer. And I don't know if he's going to return. And I'll tell you what, if he doesn't, that's okay, because I think that he's a Hall of Famer. I think he validated that this year. I'm truly in the belief he's going to win MVP, and it's okay for him to ride off into the sunset, knowing that, hey, I got this team as close as I possibly could, because he balled out. He balled out last night, and special teams lost that game for them. Special teams lost that game for them, and that's just unfortunate. But remember, there's 3 phases in this game. It's 3 phases. It's not just 2. And the third phase sometimes can rear its ugly head in the worst way.
Yep, and that was their biggest crutch this whole year with special teams. I mean, they fired their special teams coordinator like halfway in the year because of all the problems that they were having. So clearly that's an area that needs to be addressed for them, is that third phase in special teams. But then, you also need to bring in a mauler on that defensive line. They have a really good defensive line, but they don't have a game changer that just comes in and dominates. And you need to start looking at who's going to take over the reins at quarterback. You
need to start prepping for that. I think a lot of teams fail in that when they have a Hall of Fame quarterback that's starting to get towards that twilight. It's always that rough gray area. When do we try to go out and identify that young replacement while still keeping said quarterback happy? But at the same time, if Stafford does hang it up this year, you're on a massive hook. You've got a very late round draft pick, and you don't got nothing in the cupboard. So that means you're going to have to immediately turn to free agency or trade with some organization to try to get yourself someone that can at least play somewhat to his level.
Yeah, and LA is not afraid to trade away first round draft picks.
No.
They trade them. There was how many years in a row did they go without a first round pick because of the trade they made for Stafford? And they're not afraid to do that if they know that they're going to get something to put them right back in the saddle where they were at. So, I mean, you could see a crazy trade on draft day, or you could see a crazy trade that comes up to where they get one of these younger, top 2.5 tier quarterbacks to come play for them. And they just give away a boatload of picks because they know they're going to be late rounders.
Well, you got the coach. And when you got the coach, and especially as young as he is, and he's an innovative offensive mind, which makes a huge difference. I really do, especially in this modern day NFL. Then all you have to do is pair him up with another elite quarterback, and you're going to be there again. And so I definitely think that if Stafford does come back this year, they better seriously do all the due diligence to try to get that successor in the building while you still got a guy that's playing at a high enough level for the kid to learn from, to learn how to watch film, learn how to read defenses, learn all these things that I think is important to develop a quarterback, because the worst thing you can do to a young quarterback is bring them in the building and say, hey, we got to win now. As we talked about with Freddie, as we talked about with Robert Little, about how important it is, especially with the quarterback position, to give that quarterback time to develop and learn. We saw from the quarterbacks for the 2018 class, it took some of them almost 5 years to get this. So, asking someone to come right into the building as a young draft pick and say, hey, you got to win now. That's a lot to put on someone's plate.
And not just to fall in, not even, I was going to say, not to fall in just, off the quarterback class, but they needed to find the right team to be on. I feel like it took Baker to get to his whole road to get to Tampa Bay. It took Sam Darnold his road all the way to get to Seattle, and I feel like you've given them time and given them the right structure, the right staff, the right position, then they start to excel. Luckily Lamar and Josh Allen kind of fell into places that were a little established right away for them to grow in those organizations, but those other guys had to find it in a different place.
Forced to try to win right away.
Yep.
You're coming in. Hey, we need you to get produced quickly. And oh, by the way, you got a rookie contract that's on the line, and we got to make a decision whether we're going to pay you a bunch of money or not. These things make it tough on any young quarterback and the organization in itself. Once again, this is Prime Cover Sports Network, Unfiltered Sports with Mac and Cal. We want to thank all of our viewers out there. This will be available on Spotify as well. If you missed anything, you can also go to YouTube and just simply watch the replay. Just go to Prime Cover Sports Network and look up Unfiltered Sports with Mac and Cal. Make sure to check out all of our excellent sports shows this week as we're bringing it every day of the week, Monday through Sunday. Prime Cover Sports Network with Mac and Cal, Unfiltered Sports, baby. Thank you. Shouts out to Robert Little.
Yeah, hey, drop.
Prime Coverage Sports Network. Real coverage, real conversation.